Well, hello there. This is Virtuals the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. Today I've got another game of the Smith-Morra Gambit, which is basically an anti-Sicilian. Let's go take a look. So I've got the white pieces in this game, and of course e4. Opponent plays the Sicilian, so c5. Smith-Morra Gambit, d4. Idea is immediately to try to take control of the center, get rid of that pesky pawn, captures, Gambit another pawn, takes, knight out, and in this position we're basically got what we want. Black has no development. We've got one pawn in the center. We've got one step of tempo. Now we are down a point of material, but one of the things is that from this point onwards, often white ends up perfectly okay, and potentially we're down lines which don't really look very much like the Sicilian defense. So here they develop the other knight, I develop bishop, looking at that pawn, a6, that's a good move, develop the other knight, d6, that's a good move. Now here I decide to play a4 because I didn't want any queenside expansion. You can see that Stockfish thought that that was unnecessary, that if you castle short, it doesn't really matter that they try to expand on that side. In fact, they may be wasting some moves. Here they develop their other knight, and I short castle. And here on move 8, let's take stock of where we are. So firstly, this doesn't really look like a Sicilian. So potentially any sort of advantage black might have as a Sicilian player, knowing Sicilian lines, well, they've lost some of that advantage. I'm up a point of tempo, I am down a point of material, but being up on tempo is quite important because I've now castled. Black can't castle right away, and potentially I can launch an attack before black is very well developed, very well set up to defend against the attack. So they've lost any initiative from potentially playing the Sicilian, and of course they're not playing Sicilian lines. So here they decide to play a g6, and at the moment we're basically equal, so 0-0-0. I decide to play a fairly aggressive bishop move. You can see Stockfish thinks that queen to b3, which is a common idea in the Smith-Morra, to target the f7 pawn might be best. So that's good to know. They now fianchetto their bishop, and I now decide to strike out in the center. So attack the center while black is not exactly quite ready. So my logic here is, if they eventually take with that pawn, I'm happy to potentially trade, keeping and forcing their king in the center. Now here they should have taken, but instead they moved their knight backwards. And you can notice that they're very, very cramped in this position here. And here, that was a mistake. And it's a mistake because that pawn on e7 is now pinned to the queen, which means I can straight up capture and it's not defended. So I take, and I now win back my point of material. And they're still cramped. I've got the initiative. I've got an attack. It's looking very, very good for me. Now they sort of panic, panic castle, the king onto the king side. You can see that was another mistake. And now it's actually, where are we? It's plus 5.5. So you can see how quickly we went from just equality. I strike in the center. That wasn't even the most accurate move. And now I've got a really good advantage. Now here I decide to play the rook to e1. Now the idea is, placing pressure on the pinned piece. Stockfish actually thinks I should just take immediately. They now decide to try to defend that pawn with a rook move of their own. That's another mistake. It's now almost plus 7 because now I take, knight backwards yet again. Again, it's pinned. You can see, so constrained, hardly any development, and now putting pressure on the pinned piece. And here, black thinks for a little bit, and then they make the wrong move. Now, one of the things with my opponent, this was a 15-minute game of 10-second increment, is I think they just underthought their positions. You can see they're way above 15 minutes. I'm spending a little bit more time thinking, and I think they're making some bad moves. This was a blunder. Now, you can sort of make a logic here. They're trying to block that pin. However, can you see the killer move I have here? At high depth, Stockfish actually finds a false checkmate line. A mate in 15, can you believe it? Can you find the best move? It is knight captures the pawn on f6, double check. And double checks makes the impossible possible. The king is forced to move, and in fact the king must move to this square. It only has that square. Let's say they decide to move here. If they decide to do that, then that would be a very, very lovely checkmate. Now, they saw through that, so they played the right move, king to h8, and of course now I take that rook. And here I'm now up on material, so basically my goal is to force trades, try to simplify, and get down to an endgame where I'm up material. So they take, I capture. What are they going to do? You know, they have to move their queen. So I win more material here, there, or there. I thought, look, I'm just going to take that knight. Take, they take, I take with the queen. You know, there we go. They try to move the queen out of the way. And look, I mean the bishop out of the way, but it doesn't matter. I want to capture. I want to trade. Capture, capture. And here I don't see a potential winning line. So the winning line here actually is knight to g5 with a mate in one attack there. And pretty much black is forced to defend against the mate, and there's a mate in 4 from this position. So that might look something like this. Queen to block. I give a check. King moves forward. I give a discovered check here. The king, either way, it ends up the same. They move out of the check. I now give another check. King, only one move, and mate. So fairly complicated sequence actually. So I didn't see it, and I think it would have been difficult to see in game. Instead, what I saw was the queen and the king are on a single diagonal, and so what I can do is basically force a pin and basically force a trade. So queen trade. I've got 1, 2, 3 pieces. Black only has the rook, completely winning. Now, of course, I still have to win this, but it shouldn't be that difficult. So, you know, they play some pretty good moves with the rook, you know, reasonably tricky. And in this position, it looks like they've got a fork, and they do have a fork, but here I was fine because I thought, look, captures, and then basically completely winning with 2 passed pawns on the queen side. So that's what I did. Captures, they take the knight, doesn't matter. I take, and from this position, they absolutely cannot prevent one, if not both, pawns from promoting. What that looks like, you know, they try, but, you know, the 2 passed pawns, you know, they're connected, basically hand in hand. They try to bring the king all the way across, but it doesn't matter. You know, both of these pawns will be promoting. They decide to trade their rook for my one of my pawns, but immediately after they opted to resign because there's nothing left here. Takes, that's going to promote to a queen, and then basically it's easily winning. Good game. GG. The big takeaway from this game is to try the Smith-Morra Gambit against the dreaded Sicilian Defense. It is reasonably solid and really very fun to play. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.